Talk to me, to me. Majestic talks. Come and talk to me. Talk to me, to me. Majestic talks. Come and talk to me. Majestic talks. Come and talk to me. Majestic talks. Come and talk to me, to me.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Majestic Talk Show. I'm your host, Latasha Morgan, certified Christian life coach, certified professional life coach, board certified master Christian mental health coach, and a whole lot of other good stuff. We are here today to discuss the imposter syndrome. Today, we have two guests with us, Siobhan Cunningham.
Hello.
And also we have Elayna Fernandez.
Hi.
Hi, ladies. How y'all doing today? Welcome to the Majestic Talk Show.
Thank you.
I know I sound really excited because I am, and I've been that way for a little while now. But I'm really excited about this show. Siobhan is from the International Association of Women that I'm a part of. And Elayna Fernandez is from the self-made community that I'm a part of. So Elayna is in California, while Siobhan is all the way in Alaska, where it's cold at.
I'm actually not too far from California.
Well, you way away from me. Okay, both of you. But I'm glad you're here today. I really am. I'm excited about what's going to go on in this show. But again, we're going to be discussing the imposter syndrome. So, Elayna, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone? And after you do, Siobhan, I want you to do the same.
Awesome. Yes, thank you so much. And first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm really, really honored to be a part of the show.
You're
and
welcome.
like you said, my name is Elayna Fernandez. I'm currently in California, but I actually live in Fort Worth, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I'm traveling for a TED Talk, which is really exciting. And yeah, my name is Elayna, but they call me the positive mom. And that's because my philosophy, my mission is to help moms be positive, and that means that they're present, playful, peaceful, and on purpose. And yeah, I have 4 daughters. I'm a single mom of 4 daughters, and I'm, as you know, a mompreneur.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to be here and grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you for being here. Siobhan, why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself?
Hi. Thank you so much for having me on your show today. I am so excited about this conversation.
You're welcome.
I know that we're talking about imposter syndrome, so I am going to tell you I'm having a major imposter syndrome moment because as a businesswoman, new founder of my program, Empower Women Today, I have 2 little ones. One is 2 years old and one is 4 months old, and my 2-year-old is just following me today. So I have a little bit of imposter syndrome because you may hear her in the background when I really wasn't planning on her to be awake right now.
Well, it's okay. It's all right. You're a mom, and that's, it's good that she's able to follow you. So it's all right. I'm sure a lot of people on here have children that feel the way you do sometimes. But before we start talking about going into details and you saying about how you felt and experienced imposter syndrome, and the same for Elayna, let's define what the imposter syndrome is, okay? And some ways that some of the risk factors of it, all right? So, imposter syndrome is an internal experience of believing that you are not as competent as others perceive you to be, as if you are a fraud. You have a sense of being a fraud, fear of being discovered, difficulty internalizing your success. It can affect your work performance, taking on responsibilities, job dissatisfaction, and burnout, and other areas of your life. Okay, so some of the risk factors of it includes some of the things that may increase your risk of having imposter syndrome are as follows: new challenges, family environment, being from marginalized population group, having depression and anxiety. All those things can increase your risk of having the imposter syndrome. Some of the statistics say that 65% of professionals are affected by imposter syndromes, and at least 70% of people will experience imposter syndrome in their life. I don't know about anyone else listening, but I know I've experienced imposter syndrome. Siobhan has, and I'm quite sure that Elayna has. So what I want to do is for both of you to talk about your experience with imposter syndrome. From Siobhan, you as a veteran, a mom, a Black woman, and Elayna, you as a mom, an entrepreneur. Well, both of you are entrepreneurs. Uh, um, as a mom, an entrepreneur, and your racial background, because we're all in marginalized groups. So, and then I'll come in after. Okay, so go ahead, Siobhan.
Imposter syndrome. This is such a layered topic because when I first thought about how I show up in the world, it's always from the lens of who is looking at me. Like, how do I think other people will perceive me? And from that perspective, the military has so many expectations on you, and then you're in the uniform, and there's just so many ways that you're supposed to present in those environments as opposed to your private life. And there's always someone to check and make sure you're doing it right. And so when I got out of the military, I had huge imposter syndrome because no one was checking and double checking and triple checking the things I was doing in my business to make sure I was doing them right. So then I thought, well, I'm going to fail, and failure's the worst. And what if they find out I'm not as smart and not as capable and not as confident as they think I am? And that was really the biggest challenge for me to even starting a business, was just not believing that who I am outside of the uniform, without the rank, without the licensed clinical social worker, who am I just as a person, and why is that so important to share in the world? That's what I got.
Thank you, Siobhan. Elayna, how about you?
Yeah, I can't wait to hear Siobhan and listen to the show. But, for me, I am very clear that experiencing imposter syndrome goes back to childhood. And that's why being a mom, I have become really aware of it, because as a mom of color and growing up in a place where, systemic racism is really latent, we know that the way that we are perceived usually, and the things that are told to us in childhood, like you won't amount to anything, or you can't do anything right, or, we're children are not available or not worthy of being listened to. So all those things that we hear in childhood really stay in our head. And no matter how much we achieve, no matter how far we go, then that really resonates with us most. And I started to notice it when after growing up in a slum, I actually went to university and I achieved so many wonderful things at a young age, and so many awards, so many scholarships, so many, beautiful accolades. And I couldn't really feel like I was a success because the conversation between my ears was like, you're not worth it. You're not worthy, and you don't deserve to be here. Why are you even here? If only they knew where you come from or who you are, they wouldn't give you these accolades. They wouldn't give you these medals. They wouldn't give you these awards. So really, there's a disconnect because of our own sense of deserving and our own sense of worthiness. So for me, imposter syndrome, starts in childhood, educating our daughters, educating our sons, educating our children, and letting them know that they deserve that to be where they're at, they belong. And that is the hardest, because even when we teach them that, and I've seen it with my own children, with are multicultural, even when we teach them that, they're going to encounter those places where they're being isolated or they're being rejected because of their background, their racial ethnicity, or their background as daughters of an immigrant. So it starts inside, but we also have a responsibility to have those conversations in our communities where we are more diverse, we are more inclusive, so that we can internalize that success. And again, it starts within, because I'll tell you why. It is very important for us to tell ourselves every day an affirmation that we are worthy, that we are enough, that we really deserve the good things that come to us. And really just reminding ourselves that we have the right to be in this planet and that we are awesome human beings, which we don't believe all the time, but I believe that if we start telling ourselves that and really owning the things that we do, that the conversation between our ears is going to change.
That is so true. That is so true, Elayna. That is so true. And the thing is, imposter syndrome it is more likely for women of color to experience the imposter syndrome than anyone else. And that's really because we are always, women especially, and people of color are always looking for that validation. We're always having to be 2 or 3 steps ahead of everybody else. You got to work harder. And if you don't, you might not get the same things everybody else gets. So it's true. You're right. You're absolutely right. It does start at a young age. And a lot of the times we experience imposter syndrome because of the things that people have said as we've grown up, like like you said, you're not going to be able to be anything, you're not good enough, you can't do that, that's stupid, you can't believe that isn't going to happen, there's no way you can do that. But I think what we have to do, though, and in my case, I have felt like that several times, even starting this show. I'm like, who's going to want to listen to me? Who's going to want to hear anything I have to say? And that's because I think growing up, my parents never told me that at all, period. Not at all. My dad always said, you can do anything you set your mind to. There's nothing you can't do. And but people, you start to listen and hear people versus what you know to be true, what you've been taught. And I see imposter syndrome. When I think of the imposter syndrome, in my head, I get a picture of a person with a mask on. Because the whole point of this imposter syndrome thing is this: you don't want people to think you're fake. So you try to do all this extra stuff, burn yourself out, and try to do things that make keep people from thinking that you are fake. But to me, either way, you're fake, right? You fake either way. Because you always deceiving somebody to believe that you are something that you're not. Why not just walk in the person that you are? Because when you don't do that, you miss out on all the great opportunities that God has for you. And I'm going to do it on, this going to be the spiritual part of the thing. We got to have that. But that's what we do. I see it like this. How dare you say that you can't do something simply because you don't believe it? God said it. That's all that matters. If God has ordained you to do something, He's placed everything you need in you already. What's in you need to be put forth, and you need to use it. You'll never know what you can do except you start doing. Right?
Amen.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
I
You know,
think
can
that
I
we
add
need
something
to
to
take
that?
into
Because
consideration, along with our
that really
faith,
spoke to
Hold
me.
on, ladies. Hold on. One of y'all at a time. Okay, go ahead, Elayna, and then Siobhan, you can come on in.
Oh my
y'all,
God.
y'all getting excited
Yeah.
on here.
Well, that
I can't hear
that
Elayna.
really
I'm
spoke to
sorry
me
if I
because,
talked
you know,
over you. I'm
something that I
sorry.
told my daughters, we were reading the Bible one day,
Mm-hmm.
and we were reading the story of John the Baptist.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter said, like, wow, he's so humble that he didn't want to be baptized of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what? I don't think that's humility. Humility, you know, it's not saying, no, I won't do what I was called to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we are hiding, when we are not doing what we were called to do, it's called disobedience.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really think that hiding is not what we're supposed to be doing in this life. But again, let's be really cognizant that this is the way that we grew up. We grew up to be perfectionists. We grew up to say, you know, prove it because we're minorities, so we have to prove ourselves. And so it takes a little bit of a detox and a process of unlearning all those things. And we got to have grace for ourselves in that process, but really keep our eye on the goal, that we're here to shine our light, that we're here to really, you know, multiply those talents that were given to us, and that if God gives us a vision, He gives us permission, and He gives us provision.
Go ahead, girl. You preach that thing, girl. You hit that. Go ahead, Siobhan. Go ahead.
Oh, I hope so. I think I love this conversation and the direction that faith plays in with your imposter, or your ability to appreciate how your imperfection is what makes you unique. And those are the talents that God wants you to use to improve the world. So I love the Japanese philosophy of improving cracks in a bowl to accentuate them and make them beautiful versus trying to cover them up. It's enhancing. It's just a shift in your thought. And it's difficult to do for ourselves because there are so many messages out there showing us how to compare ourselves to everyone else, especially if you're a person of color, especially if you're a woman of color, because on the mainstream, there are certain portrayals of people of color that don't necessarily resonate with us. And I like just the way that more we talk about this and build community around the idea of being who you are and not necessarily having to adjust to meet the expectations of people you don't even know. It is the beginning of us changing this conversation's direction.
I like to say, that is so good, y'all. That's so good. I like to say this. I had a question I put on Facebook one day. And I was like, how can you believe what somebody else said versus what God has said? God has known you since before you were formed in your mother's womb. You've known somebody else for 5 minutes. Why do you believe what they say versus what God has already said? God has said you're wonderfully and fearfully made. Believe that and walk in it. God said there's nothing you can't do as long as it's through Christ Jesus. Do that. walk in it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do miss out on the authentic you, because you are so busy trying to be everybody else, you miss
Mm-hmm.
out on the power and the authority that you have in you. I recently went through this part too, because I was like, God, these people gonna be afraid of the stuff that's in me. Maybe I need to turn it down. Like, no, don't do that. Stay who you are. Be you. Be authentically you, and operate in the things that God has called you to be. Because if not, you doing that can save somebody's life. Think about Esther in the Bible. She was an imposter. She never told her husband, the king, that she was a Jew. Nobody didn't know it until the Jews got in trouble. And her uncle told her, look, girl, don't think just because you in this house, this palace, that you're going to be exempt. God would save the Jews, but you and your family would perish. So she didn't want to do it because she knew what could happen. She could die because
Mm-hmm.
went before the king when he didn't even summon her. But her stepping out of her imposter situation, being fake, acting as if she's another nationality versus who she really is. If she had stayed in that place, how many people would have lost their lives? And she would have never known the power and the she had in her. And how her husband was so pleased with her that honey, she could tell him stuff and he'll do it. But she didn't know that until she did it. You understand what I'm saying? You don't know
Mm-hmm.
what you can do until you do what you're supposed to do. You'll
Mm-hmm.
never
Oh
know.
yeah.
If if you want
Absolutely.
to continue to go in the same pattern and not be who God has called you to be, I'm sorry, but you're gonna lose out on a whole lot of stuff. And not only will you lose out, but the people that God has called you to be a light and um give them what God has put in you, those people he's called you to, they will also miss out.
Yeah. Yeah. I like this quote that says, this is so good. Oh my gosh, I'm in chills. That says, I don't need to be nervous when I am in service.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when we think about it and we think about the impact that we can make when we shake off those false identities, that we really can impact some people, that we can impact the world, and that we can really be a blessing. And so when we don't focus on ourselves and what some people call the comparanoia, because we're comparing ourselves to others and not really being rooted in that identity that God has professed, like you said, that we are in. And so I think that it takes that. That's why I say that has nothing to do with humility. And actually, it's selfish. It's selfish if we don't share our gifts with the world. It's selfish if we don't really praise God for who He has created us to be and honor that and really own it. So again, I know that we have been raised to believe false things about ourselves and about who we are. And yes, we can change that. We can shift that. We can shift that awareness and we can be cognizant every day of the essence of who we are and the purpose that we're here to fulfill.
So, what would you tell people to do? What things do you think people can do in order to overcome imposter syndrome?
Um, I don't want to over talk, but for me, it really helps me to remind myself who I am, who I was created to be, and it started with my daughters. That's why being a mom and being a mompreneur has taught me so much about imposter syndrome, because I need to be very aware of the example, what I'm modeling for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so and so in staying in integrity with that, I have learned to celebrate every tiny step, just like I celebrate them. because one thing is what I tell them, but if I'm doing another thing, I have noticed that they listen to my actions, not to my words.
Mm-hmm.
So what have I done? I have modeled for them what it's like to pursue my purpose, what it's like to celebrate tiny little steps, celebrate myself, celebrate and praise, and also to affirm myself every day.
Mm-hmm.
So to remind myself who I am. And it doesn't matter whether you do it in the mirror, whether you do it in your prayer time, whether you write it on your journal, but have some kind of outlet that reminds you who you are, because the world is going to tell you a lot of things about you, but you can actually take that ownership. You can study the word and really recognize what has been said about you and tell yourself those things every single day through affirmations, through celebration, and through taking those little steps that maybe you wouldn't have taken. And so to summarize, you know what I like to say? Don't self-reject.
Mm-hmm.
Don't self-reject. Take those risks. And if somebody says no, well, they said no, but don't say no to yourself before you even apply for the opportunity, before you even ask for the sponsorship, whatever that is for you, try it. Don't self-reject. Don't say, who am I to do this? Who am I not to do this is the right question.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thank you so much. Siobhan, what about you? What ways do you think people can overcome the imposter syndrome?
Yeah, this one is difficult because some level of imposter syndrome is natural. Anxiety, fear of being called out as a liar, a fraud, a failure. Those are things that, depending on, like you both were saying earlier, depending on how it's introduced to us and what those consequences for us are, it's going to show up because there's uncertainty in the world, period. No one knows what other people are going to do, what's going to happen. And imposter syndrome is just a time to notice that you're paying attention right now to what it is you don't think you can do, or what it is you think other people will say to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think of it like that, then you can sit back and thank yourself, because you realize that the imposter syndrome you're feeling is your internal alarm telling you there's something to be concerned about. And while I'm not saying steer away from that feeling, I actually want to encourage you to lean into the feeling and try to figure out what it's stemming from. Could it be, I don't want to fail? Could it be someone's going to make fun of me? Could it be a deep dark secret from my past is going to come out? Okay. And then the next step is, and what would happen? Worst case scenarios, best case scenarios. Ultimately, imposter syndrome is that fear that you're going to put effort into something that you care about, and other people are going to stomp on it and make you feel like garbage. And really sorting through where that insecurity comes from, and then giving yourself grace and permission to move on, to heal, to explore. But you don't have to run. It can be a choice to hide it. That's a choice too. But just remember, dealing with it is what is going to help you overcome imposter syndrome. That's really the first step, is sorting through it.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So we should sort through it, talk about it, deal with it, and we should also make sure that we affirm ourselves all the time and always encourage ourselves. So that's what you ladies are saying. I agree with you. Talk about it, be aware of the symptoms, because that's what you're saying, and accept that it's impossible to be a perfection. No one is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone fails at some times. The thing is to get up and try again. So, ladies, and challenge, like she said, challenge those negative thoughts you're having. Talk to yourself. Tell yourself the opposite of what you're hearing. If you're hearing, I'm not able to do that, you say, yes, I am. You have to change your mindset and do the opposite of what you're telling yourself. So, ladies, thank you so much for being on the show today. Let everyone know where they can contact you, how they can contact you, or you can also put it in the messages part at the bottom of the show later if you want to. But you can just let us know how people can get in touch with you. Elayna?
Yes, thank you so much. So people can contact me on thepositivemom.com, and I'm also on social media at thepositivemom. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed both of y'all. Siobhan, let everyone know how they can get in touch with you.
Oh, the best way to get in touch with me is LinkedIn. Honestly, is LinkedIn. My name is spelled very interestingly, so you have to catch that spelling on the show notes. But Siobhan Cunningham, and I work with women veterans who want to start a business. And so it's only 0.67% of the U.S. population, but darn it, I am determined to help impact as many of those lives as possible. So if you know women who served in the military or is serving into the military, please make sure you get their names to me.
Okay, thank y'all so much again. Thank you for being on the show. I really enjoyed y'all. I really have.
So much fun. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Y'all are so welcome. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to this show. This has been one of the best shows we've had. Tune in next month because we're going to be talking about human trafficking, and Bill Wolf will be here, the head of ATI. We'll be talking about human trafficking on that day, October, the fourth Thursday in October. Okay, so until then, we'll see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Majestic talks. Come and talk to me. Talk to me, to me. Majestic talks. Come and talk to me. Majestic talks. Come and talk to me. Majestic talks. Come and talk to me, to me.